This is your WCFW Daily News Roundup for 105.7 CFW in Chippewa Falls and 93.5 The Tap in Eau Claire.
For 105.7 CFW News, I'm James Kelly. A group of health professionals and Western Wisconsin residents took part in a roundtable discussion on Thursday covering changes to health insurance premiums with the expiration of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Opportunity Wisconsin hosted the roundtable, which featured former administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Chiquita Brooks-LaSure. She says premium increases this year will be the largest single-year increase in American history.
It is actually a lot worse than I think what many people predicted. The estimates found that premiums increased on average by 26%. And so people have begun shopping and seeing that their premiums skyrocketed by hundreds to thousands of dollars, which makes this price hike the largest single year hike in U.S. history.
Over 270,000 Wisconsinites rely on those Affordable Care Act tax credits to keep their health insurance premiums down. Small businesses, which employ about 1.3 million people in Wisconsin, also rely on the tax credits for their employees. Without the credits, people are facing difficult choices between spending thousands more for coverage or switching to cheaper plans that don't meet their full needs.
For the nearly 300,000 people who are enrolled in marketplace coverage in this state, premiums could increase by thousands of dollars. A 60-year-old couple in Wisconsin who makes about $86,000 will see their average premium increases rise by about $24,000. This is just the premiums. This doesn't include what you pay when you actually go to your doctor.
In addition to the roundtable, Opportunity Wisconsin officials also met directly with healthcare providers at Marshfield Medical Center in Eau Claire and Gunderson Lutheran Medical Center in La Crosse to discuss how the increased health insurance premiums will affect the health systems and their patients. The Wisconsin Elections Commission has declined to share the state's unredacted voter rolls with the U.S. Department of Justice. The Department of Justice requested that voter roll information from all 50 states, claiming that the information is needed to enforce election laws. There are publicly available and redacted versions of the state's voter rolls that can be purchased, but the unredacted lists contain personal information that is not publicly available, like the Social Security numbers and driver's license information of voters. The Wisconsin Elections Commission, which is composed of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans, voted to send a letter to the Department of Justice on Thursday declining the request. They determined that the Department of Justice had not provided a suitable explanation for how that information will be used, and that state law explicitly prohibits them from sharing those unredacted voter rolls. Over a dozen other states have also refused to provide their unredacted voter rolls, which prompted the Department of Justice to file lawsuits against them. As challenges to Wisconsin's congressional district boundaries make their way through the courts, it remains unclear if they will be decided before the 2026 midterm election. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has appointed separate judicial panels to consider a pair of lawsuits challenging the state's congressional district boundaries ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. According to a WISN report, however, the co-founder of one of the firms that filed the lawsuit over the congressional maps says he's not expecting a resolution until the spring of 2027 after scheduling hearings were held on Friday. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has previously declined to hear other challenges to the state's congressional map, but decided that it had no choice but to establish the panels under a process created by Republican lawmakers 14 years ago. The groups filing the lawsuit say their goal is to have fair maps in Wisconsin, pointing to the disparity between the narrow results of typical statewide elections and the 6-2 Republican advantage with congressional seats. Amazon is sharing additional details about a newly planned delivery station in the city of Menominee. The company plans to build their new last-mile delivery station in the North Industrial Park neighborhood of the city. Company officials say the site will provide 100 direct jobs, mostly part-time but with some full-time leadership positions, as well as speed up package deliveries in the area. Construction on the 100,000-square-foot facility is expected to begin before the end of the year, and packages could be delivered from the site by the end of 2026. The Wisconsin Department of Transportation is working on a new initiative to reduce wrong-way vehicle crashes. According to DOT officials, wrong-way crashes are not nearly as common as other crashes, but are often more severe. They also say most wrong-way crashes occur late at night on freeways and divided highways and often involve impaired drivers. Through the initiative, the Department of Transportation installed 10 wrong-way driver alert systems across the state, which notify the DOT and law enforcement of wrong-way drivers for a faster response. The Eau Claire Parks Recreation and Forestry Department is sharing tentative opening days for winter recreation activities. According to a press release, skating rinks and warming shelters are scheduled to open on December 26th, with the exception of the Pinehurst Warming Shelter, which opened on Monday. The Pinehurst Warming Shelter will also be open to gear share and sledding Monday to Friday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and from noon to 7 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. City officials are asking residents to stay off the ice rinks prior to their official opening so they can be properly prepared. The Wisconsin Better Business Bureau is warning residents to be on the lookout for scams during the holiday shopping season. A common scam that pops up around this time of year involves scammers creating fake websites or social media ads featuring popular toys that may be out of stock in stores. While parents may be excited to find that toy, it either never arrives or they receive a cheap counterfeit of it. Agency officials are reminding parents to only make purchases from reputable stores and websites and be wary of offers that seem too good to be true. For 105.7 CFW News, I'm James Kelly.
The Packers get beat by the Broncos. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with Sports NFL. Green Bay was up 23-14 in the third quarter, but the Denver Broncos came roaring back to win 34-26, their 11th victory in a row. The Packers making key mistakes on offense. I talked to wide receiver Jaden Reed.
I hold myself accountable because late in the game, in a critical moment, I ran the wrong route. So I take the blame for that, and I do think, that's the reason why we're in this position. I hold myself accountable. I'm very critical of myself. We just all got to be on point to give ourselves the best chance.
On defense, Micah Parsons suffering a season-ending torn ACL. NBA, the Bucks got bounced in Brooklyn, 127-82. Doc Rivers.
We gave up 30 points in turnovers. The basketball guys decided you can't make any open shots now. You don't deserve it. So that was disappointing. Probably one of the more disappointing games I've ever been involved in.
That's Bucks head coach Doc Rivers. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
Partly to mostly cloudy today. We'll get to the mid to upper 20s for a high this afternoon with just a light southwesterly breeze. Tonight, mostly cloudy. We're going to drop to around 10 or 11 degrees for a low. Tomorrow, partly to mostly cloudy with a high in the upper 30s to near 40. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Temperature now is 10.
That's your WCFW and the TAP Daily News Roundup from Civic Media. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts. Find more news at WCFW.FM or thetap.fm.